Hello everyone, welcome back to Tech Reflections. I'm Vikram. Before starting, I would like to thank all of you who have subscribed to this channel and hope you all will be staying tuned for the coming videos. Today, I will be having a session on MS Excel formulas and functions that are used by almost every Excel user. Formulas and functions are the fundamental tool in Excel. You can't learn Excel without learning the usage of formulas and functions. For this session, I have chosen few basic functions. Considering the time limitation, this session would be in two parts. So let's get started with the first part. Today we will be covering these seven basic functions from Excel. First one will be starting with sum. So sum formula or function can be used for adding all the numeric cells within a defined range. So you can see the syntax. In the syntax, we have number one and then number two. Uh, the square brackets that you see with number two means that this parameter is optional for the sum function. You may or may not use it. So you can have a sum function with just one number, although it will not make any sense. So and after that, these dots tell that there can be more parameters like that. So it is up to you how many parameters you want to add. By parameters, I mean it will be taking the cell references which you want to sum. So here for the usage, we would be considering four different scenarios. The first one would be the sum selected cells. So if you select only those cells which you have selected, that is the parameter like the number one, number two, we would be selecting randomly some of the cells, and those cells would be summed up by this formula. The second is sum arrange. So here in the while summing up, we will select a range, and all the values in that range would be summed up by this formula. Then third one is sum entire row column. So here we can select either the full row or the full column, and all the values in that cell or in that row or column will get added up by this formula. And then the last one is some combination of range and cell. So we can also use a combination of range and cell means that we can have range defined plus we want some few more cells to be added. So that can also be done. So let's see how it is done in Excel. Okay, so this is the data set we would be using today. This data set we have used in our earlier videos also. So this is the sales data for an organization. So what we are trying to do here is that first of all, what we are which function we are looking at is sum, and sum on the basis of cells. So how we will do it? For a function, we will first start with a equal to. So whenever you put an equal to, Excel understand this that you will be going to enter a function. So then after that, you need to enter the function name, that is sum. The moment you enter this, you will get a list of options which would be starting with this word sum. But right now we are looking at the sum function which we have already entered. So after that we put a bracket, a round bracket. The moment you will put the round bracket, Excel itself will show you the syntax of the sum formula. And this is the same syntax which we saw earlier when we were discussing about the sum function. Okay, so here in this particular example, we are looking at the randomly selected cells. So you can go back to your data. Let's say we want to add some random cells from the total column. So you can select any of the total column or any of the cell within the total column, then enter a comma, then select another. You can have any number of cells added, and you can have across the columns or across the rows also. But in our example, we are taking it only for from the total column. So let's say we have selected these four values from the total column, and we'll just close the bracket and press enter. So see, now it has calculated the sum of all the selected four values. So what If you want to see which values you have selected, you can go back to this cell, and on the top formula bar, you can see the formula that we have entered for sum. If you click anywhere on that formula, all the cells that we used for this sum formula will get highlighted. So you will come to know which cells you selected. So this was sum on the basis of random cells. Let's move to the next part, that is sum on the basis of a range. So again, the same thing. We'll start with a sum with a equal to, and then we write sum. Start the bracket, round bracket, and this time we will have to enter a range of cells. So how can we enter the range of cell? We can directly type in. Let's say we can type in H1 to, let's say, H11. So this is the range. So by range, I mean this is a sequence of cells that you want to be summed up, like, by your formula. So this way you can do that. Either otherwise, you can also go to your data and select whatever range you want to sum, and your formula will get populated with that range. Then, as we just want a range to be summed up, we can just close it by putting the round bracket and press enter. So all the values that were selected for this range are getting summed up or added up by this formula. So we have got the result here. Now moving to the next one. Here we want to add up a full column or a full row also. In our case, we will be adding the full column. That would be the total column. So how are we going to do that? Again, an equal to. Then we put the sum formula, opening the bracket, and here either you can type in the full column, or you can select the full column. How can we select the full column? If you go, let's say if you want to sum up the column H, that is the total column. So just if you tap on the alphabet H at the top of total column, it will select the whole column for you. And this whole column will be shown in your sum formula as H to H. This is the way you read the range. So again, we close the bracket, press enter, and it will calculate all the values from the column total. So this sum formula is adding up all those values which we are providing them as a parameter. Now next one is range plus cells. So in the range plus cells, how are we going to do that is, again the same thing, equal to sum, then opening the bracket, and this time we will select the range as we did in the case of adding up a range. Plus we can press a colon as we were doing earlier when we were having when we were selecting the random cells. The same thing we can do here. This will be the range is kind of the first parameter for us, and then the next parameter, again we can select any particular cell which we want to add. So let's say if we want to add up H19 cell here, then we just press comma here, and now you can select another value. Again, you can select as many values you want. So let's say we add also H26, and then we close the bracket and press enter here. So in this formula, again we click on this, and on the formula bar we click on the formula. So just to see that this particular formula is adding up a range from H2 to H9. And also, apart from that, it's also adding H19 and H26 to this sum. So this way, this is a combination of range and cells. So this is how the sum functions work. So here we have seen all the possible ways in which a sum function can be used. Let's move to the next formula now. So the next formula would be count. How a count works, we're going to see this now. Count will be used for counting all the numeric values within a defined range. Okay, so the syntax for this formula would be count value 1, value 2, and any number of values you want to count. So again, here also we need to have at least one parameter and more than one any number of parameters that you want. So that's the reason you will see value 2 as an optional parameter here. So again, the usage, this is the same 4 ways we would be using the count formula in, like the way we did for the sum formula. Okay, let's go to the Excel and see how this will be used. Okay, now we come here. Again, we want to count. And now, as we understood that count is only for numeric values. So I have put another data set. So this particular area we would be using for our count formula. So here you can see that we have, there is no set defined format for any of the column or row. We have mixed data. So in this, let's use let's see how we use the count here. The first thing is that we are using count on cells. So let's use this formula again. We will put equal to, then count and bracket, and here you can see the syntax which we have already discussed. So in this particular part, we would be selecting randomly the cells which we want to count. So let's say we select this one, then we put a comma, then put select this one, then we put a comma, select this one, and then again comma, and then this one. So we have actually selected 4 different cells here. Out of the 4, if you can see, we have 2 cells which have a numeric value, one is having a text value, and one is blank. So ideally, how many cells should be counted and what should be the answer for this count is, it should be 2. Why 2? That because we had only 2 numeric fields in the set of cells that we selected, and the count is only for numeric cells. Now moving ahead, let's see how it goes with the range. Again, we put the formula equal to count and then start the round bracket, and this time we will select a range. Let's say if we select this as our range. So before pressing enter, what should be the answer here? So how many numeric fields you see? So there are 2 numeric fields, but there is one thing that I want to tell you here is there is one date field also, or the date value also. So Excel considered date as a numeric field. So in this case, the answer would be 3. So see if it has given us the answer 3. So there were 2 numeric fields, and one date field is also considered as a numeric field. So count will count that, the count function will count the date field also. Now let's see how it works with the column count, and then start the bracket, and we will select, let's say this full column we have selected. So here we have total 2 numeric fields in this particular column. So if you press enter, the answer should be 2. Okay. We can do the same with a row also. Let's say if we remove this range, and this time we use this as the range. So here you can see there are total 3 numeric fields in our range, and our range is now row wise. So we press enter and we get the value as 3. Now next is range plus cell. Let's see how it works. We'll enter the formula the way we were doing earlier, and then we'll select first of all a range. So let's say we select this as our range, then we put comma, and now we can select some random cells also. So let's see, we select this one, press comma, and then we select this one also. And now we press the closing closing bracket, and then so again we want to first see which ones we selected and how many numeric fields were there. So this we have already seen how to see which cells were selected. So when we click on a formula bar on the form anywhere in the formula, we'll see all those cells which were selected for that particular formula. So in this, if you see how many numeric fields we have, so there are two numeric fields and one date field. So ideally, it should have count as 3. So that is what we have got. So now we can move to the next formula, that is count A. This is what we are doing now. Count A we will be uh, discussing. Okay. So count A is for counting all non-blank cells within the defined range. So what's the difference between a count and a count A is that count was counting only the numeric fields. Even if we select a text field within our range, it is not counting it. It is ignoring that cell. But here, when we use count A, it will ignore only the blank cells. So in our range, if we have a blank cell, it will ignore it. Otherwise, even if it is a text field or a numeric field, it will get counted by the count A function. So again, we will be looking at the usage on the all four criteria which we have been doing for sum and count. Okay. So the first one is count A on cells. So let's see how count A is done. So this is count A, and now we have to select some random cells from this data set only. So let me select this as the first L21, then a comma, and then let me select this N23, then a comma, and then I select P23, then a comma, and then I select P25. And let's see what would be the answer. Before that, we have selected the four values here, where we have two values, four cells, sorry, and out of those four cells, two have a text value, one is having a date value, and one is blank. So from a count A, function, it should only be counting three cells which are having values and should ignore the blank cell. Let's see if we get answer as 3. So this is the way we will get the answer 3 here, because there were only 3 non-blank cells. Again, we'll do the same formula for range now. This is count A, and now this time we select a range. Let's see, I select this as the range. So ideally we have total 6 cells here, but only 4 has value. So it should select only the 4, it should count only 4 cells, and the answer should be 4 here. So we press, this is going to give us answer as 4. So there were only 4 non-blank cells. We can do it for this column also. So we select this, and this one has, out of 5, 4 cells have value and 1 is blank. So the answer should be 4. Now we can do the same for range plus cells also. This time, let's say if I give this as my range, then I press comma and I select this, it is L23, then I press comma and I also select, let's say, O21, and we close the bracket. Press enter. So sorry, we didn't check it before pressing the enter. Let's go back to the formula bar, select on it. Let's see what all was selected. So within our range that we selected, that is N23 to O25, we had only one cell which was not having a value. So out of 6, 5 was having value. And apart from that range, we have selected 2 more cells, out of which one is having value and one is blank. So total it should be having 5 plus 1, 6 as the answer, and this is what we have got here. Answer 6. Okay, so now we can move to the next formula. Our next function we would be working on is average. So average is used for calculating average of all the cell values within the defined range. Syntax for it is that we can have cell references, any number of cell references for which we need to calculate the average. And in the usage, again, we will be using the four different ways as we are doing for other formulas. Like we will be averaging, calculating average of the selected cells. Then we will calculate average of a range. Then we will calculate average of an entire row and column. And finally, average of a combination of range and cells. So let's get started. Okay. So here, the first one is average on the basis of cells. Okay. So let's put the formula equal to average and here we randomly select few values for which we want to calculate the average. So we select this value L22, then we select O23, then we select O25, and finally we select N25. Then we close the bracket. So here, if you see, we have out of four that we selected, two are numeric and two are non-numeric. So for calculating average, it will be considering two numeric fields, that is 46, values 46 and 750. So this function, average function, will calculate the average for 46 and 750 that we can see now. So the answer is 398. So all the non-numeric fields which were there are ignored from this formula. Now let's see how average function is worked on a range. So we'll put the formula here. This time we'll select a range. So in this range we have three numeric cells and three text cells. So for calculating average, three numeric fields or three numeric cells would be considered. That is the value 3000, 60 and 1900. So when we click on enter, it will get average will get calculated for these three cells. Now let's move to the column. Let's see how it works on a column. So again we enter the formula and this time we select, let's say this is our range and we press enter. And this time it will calculate the average on the basis of two numeric cells, that is 3000 and 60. So average is calculated for these two, and the rest, the blank and the text values are ignored. Then we move to the next one, that is range plus cells. Let's put the formula here, and this time we will have both range and cells. So let's see, the range is this, and then we put a comma, and then we enter few other fields. Like for example, we have L23. I selected L23, then I select another. I'll put another comma, and I selected uh, O24, and see how the average would be calculated. So same way, all the numeric fields in our range and the cells that we selected will be calculated. Average would be calculated for all those fields. Like in our case, there were in the range all three were there were total four cells, and out of four, three were having numeric values and one is blank. And other than that, we have selected two more cells, one of which is numeric. So total, it has considered all the four numeric values and calculated the average on the basis of that. So this way we completed our first four formulas. With this, we conclude today's part of the lecture, and the remaining functions will be covered in the second part. Till then, let me know which functions you will be using or you are already using in your day-to-day Excel usage. Bye, and thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next lecture.